What time is it? It's time for another Every Other Wednesday.
It's fine. People probably want to talk about something else other than although I could talk about us all day.
My favorite topic.
It's my favorite topic too, right? Like, come on.
All right,
So-
stop it. What are we talking about?
What are we talking about? And thank you. How to do a monkey pose, step-by-step breakdown. There we go. We got this monkey yoga thing worked out for us. Thank you, Stephen. So we're going to work, because this is our last every other Wednesday of the year, because we're coming to the year end and embarking on a bold, new, exciting year, we thought we would talk about this kind of transition, how this is a great time to pause, to reflect, to take stock of where you're at with your team, with your business, with your workplace culture, to talk about some ideas, some activities, some questions maybe that you can pose to yourself, with your family, even with your team, to help you reflect and review the year that was, and also help you set yourself up for success in 2023. So Sanjay, let me ask you this right off the bat. Do you think it's important to do that, to just kind of take a time out to kind of review the year, to celebrate the year, to reflect on what worked, what didn't work?
100%. I'm a big believer of anytime you try any strategy, you need to refine it. And the only way you can refine a strategy to refine it, to continue doing what you're doing or put in more resources into a certain area or pull back and pare back and reallocate is by doing an evaluation. I don't care if it's the end of the year. The end of the year is a very logical time because most people, their businesses slow down. That sort of week between Christmas and New Year, especially in North America, is a slower time. So it is a wonderful time for reflection, but not just reflect, but then take those learnings and figure out how we're going to implement them.
Right. I think too, it's important to have an element of appreciation and celebration built in this time of year, right? Especially if you've had a challenging year, I think it can be really helpful to take the time to appreciate one another and to celebrate the successes you did have, to remind people of the successes and the wins that you had, even if it felt like it was a really tough, well, especially if it felt like a really tough year. I think it's even more important to do that, to take that pause, to just review the year, right? And recognize that, hey, you had a lot more wins than maybe you remember.
100%. I also find that in general, when we look back at a year or any sort of period of time, or if you're in it right now and you're like, I'm stressed, I got a million things to do, or there was so many things went wrong. If you actually take inventory and physically write out a list, mentally, physically, virtually, think about it, write it down, type it in, you'll realize that list of I have a million things to do really isn't a million things. I mean, it's 12. And sometimes just kind of crossing off like 2 or 3 of them and getting it down to 10 or 9, you're like, this is manageable, this is doable. So sometimes just by organizing our thoughts and not being overwhelmed with this list of stuff we think we're going to do, and just, like I said, writing it down, organizing it, looking at it and going, it's not so bad. And at the same time too, you go, hey, this year was horrible. Why was it horrible? Oh, there were so many things that went wrong. What are they? Well, there were these 6 things. And then you kind of look at it and you go, wait, well, I had no control over that one. And well, this one was a great learning opportunity. And this one actually turned out, I thought it was bad, but it turned out to be, and all of a sudden this list of horrible, bad year was actually only 3 bad things.
Right.
So again, that's taking that stock and having that inventory is so important.
Yeah, I agree, Sanjay. And there's research around this notion that if you just push back a little bit, even with our internal dialogue with ourselves, and ask the question, why? Like if you rated this last year as, oh God, I'd rate this year as a 3 out of 10. It just sucked in so many areas. But then you push back and you say, well, why? Tell me more about that. Why would you rate it a 3 and not higher? When people start to unpack that and reconsider things, they almost always end up rating things higher. They start to review it and they start to realize, yeah, just what you said, Sanjay, maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was.
I think that what we're all kind of looking for is, emotional is not the right word, but I'm going to use the word emotional. Emotional stability comes from higher lows and lower highs. So our bandwidth actually tightens up over time. So we don't have these wild swings of elation and depression, manic, depressed, like back and forth. What we eventually want to do is sort of tighten it up. Often when I'm working with speakers, in teaching them presentation training, that's a concept I try to explain to them, that the difference between a good day and a bad day, you want that band to tighten up and over time to increase. So when you first start speaking, you get in front of that group and you get that standing ovation, you're like, I'm on top of the world. I love it. This is the most amazing time. And then the next time you get booed off the stage. And so you've gone from one extreme to the other. And again, over time, what you do is you kind of tighten it up and you realize that the lows aren't actually as bad as you think, nor the highs.
Yeah.
In fact, in sports, they talk about that all the time. When your team is running either a winning streak or a losing streak, your team is never as bad as the losing streak, and it's never as good as the winning streak. So what we want to do is kind of close that bandwidth and move up over time.
Yeah, for sure. And do you know, I don't want to go down this road. It is a funny story, but I actually once literally got booed off the stage as a speaker. Nothing that I did. It was nothing that I did, just to be fair.
It never is. But as a Christmas gift to me, I would love to hear that story.
Oh, it's a good story. It's a cringe-inducing story. Anyway, so let's talk about some things. Let's start with the sort of year-end review and some fun ways, some interesting ways that we can review the year that was.
I just want to point out, though, that Randy wants to hear the story too. So if we hear enough yays, you may be forced to.
Okay, really quick, the Reader's Digest of the version of the story. And I saw this disaster unfolding before it unfolded. It was the 7th game of a playoff series involving the Montreal Canadiens. I knew this was going to be a problem. They had set up a giant screen. This was an after-dinner talk so that this largely blue-collar, predominantly male audience of 300 people who had been drinking heavily could watch the game. I was telling the organizers, do not turn off the hockey game. Here's what we could do. Instead of me speaking for an hour, I could speak between periods and just break up my talk a little bit, and then we'll put the hockey game back on. Well, they didn't do that. They turned off a 7th game playoff.
And people cheered?
Game in Canada and introduced me. And people not only booed, people threw things. My hour keynote on that evening got reduced to, I believe, about 4.5 minutes.
I'm surprised it lasted 4.5 minutes.
Yeah. So I
never lasted 4.5 minutes.
Anyways, so let's talk about some things you can do, some traditions, some ways that, and I've seen companies do all sorts of things. I have one company who won the game. Oh my God. It was Montreal Canadiens versus Pittsburgh. I can't remember. I think it was
Michael Kerr won the game because he got out of there alive.
Oh, geez. So I have clients who've done everything from one client, and I love this, it's a little bit out there, but they actually do at their year-end party in the afternoon, they challenge teams to do these mini, and I think the time limit is 5 minutes. So they have to do 5-minute skits to review the year that was in a fun, high energy way with their team. And they are hilarious, and they record these, and it's just a fun way to kind of look at the year that was. And I wrote about this in my newsletter today, Sanjay. Just very simple questions that you can ask. I always suggest this every year, and it's something I've done, and you can do this again with your family, your teammates, where you just go around and you review, okay, what were the top 3 highlights or wins for you from 2022? What are the top 3 things you are most grateful for? Because I think it is an important time right now to practice gratitude. And then the third question, what is the number 1 thing you are excited about for the next year, for 2023? So lots of fun rituals like that. Another client does a fun video countdown where, again, they get employees, and each employee does a highlight, and they do the top 10 highlight reel of the year that was in either their team or in their organization. Sanjay, do you have any ideas like that?
I'm going to ramble here for a bit, saying that I think that's really important, that whenever you do anything as an organization, it's really important that, I'll say it this way, you have a vegetarian option. And what I mean by that is, if you have a meal, it used to be kind of one size fits all. And the activity was to do a skit, and you were a quiet antisocial person, and this was like, you'd rather eat your own spleen. It is not helpful. It doesn't actually improve morale. It probably sucks the life out of that individual. And then they talk about how it's unfair and how they don't want to get in front of the group and that sort of thing. So if that's the only option, that's the steak. You always want to have a vegetarian option.
For sure.
right? And so it just has to align, and the most effective organizations do that, or they don't have to be extroverted in it, or they can just kind of sit there and enjoy it. So I'll give you an example of where I've seen something like that done. And it's a simple, silly activity, but the energy that they rallied around this was just brilliant. So it was a major hotel chain, and they were doing their end of year dinner. And one of the things they did, so they gave some awards, and it was very social, no work at all. And the awards were fun and silly awards. But one of the things they did was, for those who wanted to participate, and I believe there was, I don't know, maybe 200 people in the room, only 30 participated, which again, giving people the option to opt in or out is very important, because you have to earn your right to risk. Now, again, this is very low risk, but again, brilliant. So those 30 people that want to participate, they each have to come up with a $20, they bring a 20 or I don't remember, $50 gift card from whatever they want. The beer store, the you know, I don't know, Best Buy, it doesn't matter. But so they have these 30 gift cards, $600 worth of gift cards, and they put those 30 people in a raffle, and their names are in a raffle, and it's a reverse raffle. So at the beginning of the event, so at whatever the event's going to be 4 hours, or let's, for simple math, let's say there's going to be the event's going to be 3 hours long. Every hour they pull 10 names out of the hat,
Right.
and those 10 names are removed from the from the gift card, from the prizes. So again, what made it so fun was the person who was doing the MC had a little bit of a story that they told kind of as part of the year in the review. So I pull up the first name. It's like, oh, it gives me great pleasure to pull up this first name. So Mike, you are now eliminated. And it's good because remember in March when you did this during COVID, and so they, again, made it relevant. Everyone had a good big chuckle. And in fact, they did it one better. Every time they were pulling names, they made all 30 people stand. And as your name was called, you had to sit down. So you saw who was still left. And again, they would do that. The first break, they did 10. Then the second break, they did 10. And then when they got down to the last few, they got them on stage. Again, just fun energy around it. And it was just a laid back, low risk. And then whatever the top 3 people each got 10 gift cards, well, however it works.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. And it is a great time of year to think about creating your very own, and it doesn't have to be related to the holidays or anything. We're talking more about year end and wrapping things up. So it is a great time of year to just have some sort of tradition or ritual that becomes a yearly thing. We've talked so often on this about how important rituals and traditions are to build a strong team, to build a stronger sense of history in your culture and bond people and give people something to look forward to. I mean, and to your point, Sanjay, as I've talked about here before, we had the brilliant Mike Easton, the CEO of Argus Industries, on every other Wednesday, and they used to have a year-end ritual. It had nothing to do with the holidays, but they had the year-end ritual where they would show that montage video at their last party of the year of how they videotaped everyone being frightened by the employee who used to dress up in a gorilla costume, right? Like, so stupid, but it was just a fun, goofy laugh to end the year on. And you hit on another point too that I want to touch on too, is it's a great time of year to give out some fun awards, right? Just some fun awards, like you know, the Rookie of the Year award. You know, who's the Rookie of the Year on your team for 2022? The Blooper of the Year award, the you know, the most memorable highlight award. There's all sorts of fun ones that you could come up with for the year to help you celebrate and review the year that was. And on that note, why don't we put this in the chat box? A simple, great exercise too to ask your team is just what one word would you use to describe the year that was, to encapsulate the year that was? So in the chat box, I challenge everyone to do that. What one word or short phrase, really short phrase or one word would best capture your 2022? So Sanjay, what would yours be?
Oh, I would say rebirth. 2022 is actually a lot of things coming together for me. My divorce is finalized. My speaking started picking up again. I got involved in new business. So there's a lot of that. Wait, hold on. Before you go too deep down this rabbit hole, I want to jump back to the awards thing. There's another huge benefit of offering the awards, no matter how serious or silly they are, because it's one thing for someone to stand in the ivory tower and go, Billy gets this award, Sally gets that award. But if you really want to engage people and have a lot of fun and see a different perspective, the nomination piece of the awards is just as important as the award.
Yeah.
So someone going, you're going, hey, what's the story behind why you're nominating this person for the award? And you get those backstory, but the person writing it up takes ownership in that as well. And it gives that different perspective. Again, there are people who love this limelight. They go, give me the awards. I want it. But there are other people who get just as much pleasure and pride in nominating someone for that award.
For sure.
So you want to, again, do this properly is get the engagement, get the peers going. And I think that's something that's often overlooked. People go, oh, I need an award, so it's the award. It's your story, right? The customs guy that wins
Yes. Randy, the customs
Tell that
officer of the
story.
year guy who nominated himself. He was the jury, the selection committee, the organizing committee. Yeah, I love that.
He won it like 12 years in a row because he was it. So
Yeah. So just before we leave this, and then let's then talk, Sanjay, about what can we do to set ourselves up for success in 2023 and some things we can think about to launch the year in the right way. But before we leave this, and I apologize for some of you that subscribe to my newsletter, these were in my newsletter, but some other questions that you could challenge yourself or your team with. What's the biggest obstacle you had to overcome this year? What is something you tried or did that scared you at the time? What are you most proud of from the last year? What new skill did you learn? Who helped make a difference in your life? I'm going to give a shout out to Sanjay. He made a difference in my life, Sanjay.
and I mean, it works, right?
And yeah. What surprised you the most this last year? Who inspired you the most? And then you can do just some fun ones too. Like what was always fun to do these with your team. What was your favorite book of the year, favorite TV show, favorite movie, favorite song, whatever it is. So just make sure you celebrate that. And we've got to read some of these books here, Sanjay.
Okay,
Randy, Hair on Fire, Chaotic, Emotional, Challenging, Refocused, Frustrating, Knowing Your Purpose. Excellent.
So you're kind of given a template in terms of questions to ask. I found that when I was in school and they said, write something, I was always lost. But
I could see that.
When you ask specific questions, it's much easier to come up with information. So I've heard it said, the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions you ask. So to say to someone, how was 2022? That's a much more difficult question than what are you most proud of in 2022?
Right.
What was most challenging? So if you can have a template, even if it's 5-10 questions, and you go around and give that structure, it sets the table. The other thing too is if you're doing this, especially in an open format where it's discussionary and you don't want it to go till 3 o'clock in the morning, then you have to do is implore a little group think. And what I mean by that is if you want people to give like a 1 or 2 sentence answer, then what you do is you ask the question and then you have the first 2 people coach to say, give me a 1 or 2 sentence answer. Because then they'll give, and then it goes around the room. Versus if you just let it go wild, first person gives half an hour, then the next person feels obliged to do half an hour, and then 17 hours later, you've only gone through first question.
Right. Yeah, excellent, Sanjay. Perfect. All right. Why is somebody's asking? It's not David Hasselhoff. It's Elvis peeking around the corner. There's so many people think it's David Hasselhoff.
Yeah, I do. That's all because I know your obsession with Knight Rider.
Yeah, it is my childhood obsession with Knight Rider. I believe I was 5 at the time. So let's talk about launching the new year on the right foot. And again, this can start to happen now. It can start to happen, I think, in tangent with reviewing the year that was to now let's shift our focus to the year that's coming up. But certainly in the new year, in January, in early January, it's a great time to get your team together to refocus, to recharge the batteries, to re-energize everyone, and to challenge everyone to think about the year ahead. And again, a simple framework like we've been talking about can help. So the old wheel of change framework that I know we've talked about a few times, great thing to do in early January with your team. What is one thing we all have to commit to remember to keep doing? What is one thing we should start doing that is going to help our culture rock? And what is one thing we need to stop doing? 3 questions, dirt simple, but just having a framework like that can help to focus people and create some good conversations.
Along those same lines is the idea of, what are we going to change or what are we going to start doing differently? This time of year, people love resolutions. Where do you stand on the resolution continuum, Mr. Kerr?
on the resolution continuum. You know, I actually make more resolutions for myself in September than I think I do. And I always feel, I think it's because of the nature of my jobs I've always had and going back to school. I tend to think of September as more a kickoff of a new year for me. But yeah, resolutions, they get a bad rap, of course, because most people, I think, don't do them properly, right? We write down, we have these great aspirational goals, and we all know the jokes about taking out the gym memberships, and then 2 weeks later, you know, you're just not going to the gym. So we have these great aspirations. So I think I think that they can be incredibly effective if you do them right. If you do things like you have a support team that is going to hold you accountable, accountability team. I think in a work context, I think it can be, helpful to share even your personal resolutions with the rest of your team and help them cheer you on and hold you accountable. But I think it comes down really to smart goal setting, right? It's about making sure that you are creating realistic goals with milestones, with actual follow-up action plans, and committing to those things, and not committing to, 18 things that you are going to do differently in 2023. Keeping to a couple of priorities.
I love your optimistic nature and how you spin things, because you're talking about how you did your resolutions in September because of school, but you and I both know the truth is you were procrastinating and it just took you 9 months.
Those were my January resolutions that I waited 9 months to do.
So I'm a big believer of the concept of resolutions, which is the idea of making change. Yeah. And it's self-imposed change, which is a heck of a lot more powerful than people telling us you should do this and all that sort of thing. So I'm a huge fan of that. I hate New Year's resolutions because I think generally they do more harm than good. Because this is what people do. They go, oh, I've eaten like a gluttonous pig for the entire Christmas holidays. It's got 7 days until the New Year starts. Oh, I'm going to get in better shape. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to start exercising. Good. So in the next 7 days, I'm going to go to town. And they do more harm for their body in those 7 days. But here's the other big thing too, is they're actually, I do believe that people legitimately want to make changes. And so they're inspired on, whatever, December 26th, they're inspired to make these changes. And they go, doing it January 1st, because that's New Year's. But in that 6 days, their health goes down. They spend more money. They abuse their relationships going, I'm going to fix it in January. And in that 6 days, they become demotivated. Yeah. So I'm a believer of, if you have the idea now, do something now. Whether it's, put down the cupcake. Actually, no, cupcakes are good, but, put down the whatever. So
don't put down the cupcake.
I don't like
put down the cupcake.
I don't like the time where people go, I'll start this at the beginning of the month. I'll start this at the beginning of the year. I'll start this next quarter. No, start it now. Even if you half-ass do it, you're still moving towards the direction, and you're going to get more benefit from that. And I also believe too that one of the most addictive things is results. So if you do something and you get the benefit or the result that you're looking for, you're more inclined to continue to do it or add to it. So I love the idea of resolutions. I don't love the idea of postponing them, especially if you're inspired and you get the idea to do it now, do something about it now.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree. I meant to look this up because I've written about resolutions several times over the years. And I know the statistic for the percentage of people that keep their resolutions is pretty horrible for some of the reasons we described. But in a workplace setting, when we're talking about our culture and improving our workplace environment, I think there are some good things we can do. One of my clients has, and kind of like resolutions, I suppose, but they have a giant achievement board where everybody publicly writes down what they want to achieve in the coming year, as it pertains to work, as it pertains to their own job, as it pertains to their team. So it just becomes a little bit of a reminder, a little bit of a public accountability thing as well, but also for this particular client, they say it almost has a celebratory aspect to it as well. They keep it very positive focused, and it's just a way of helping everyone see what everyone wants to work on, what they need help with, where they need support from everyone.
Yeah. Actually, I got two things going on in my head. This idea of
only two things?
That's it, two. I peaked. This idea of recognizing wins. I think is huge. So my son, and I was actually kind of semi looking this up. I don't know. Can I Oh, maybe I will. Can I try to share my screen? Let's see, will that work?
And yes, they do review the achievements afterwards, Stephen. Yes.
All right, can you guys see my screen?
I cannot. Now I can. This is very exciting.
So that was my 15-year-old. And what they did was,
Wow.
these kids, every time they learn a new skill, he just learned to do a double backflip that day. But these kids, what they do is they have a bell. And when someone hits a major milestone like that, they ring the bell, and then everyone stops in the gym to watch. And then, they celebrate the success. And why can I not? Where am I? Uh-oh. Why can't I? Where is stop sharing screen? Oh, there it is. There we go. So, but
Oh, we lost you, Sanjay. And Sanjay is no longer with us. Sanjay has a lot of tabs open in his head.
Are you there?
There, now we can hear you.
That was weird. I could see you. And anyways, I was yelling at
Oh, we could see you. We just couldn't hear you, which was actually, kind of a
bad
bonus
thing.
for a while there.
I want to point out this too, that kind of going back to the resolution piece. If you pick resolutions that you want, the chances of you sticking to them are significantly, astronomically, exponentially higher.
For sure.
Versus you're supposed to, or you're told to, or out of guilt or shame, or you read this and you think you're ought to. The example I heard this about this study, which I think is very funny and clever. They took a bunch of children, split them into two groups. One group stared at cauliflower for half an hour. The other group stared at a chocolate chip cookie. They weren't allowed to eat the cauliflower. They weren't allowed to eat the chocolate chip cookie. Then after the half an hour was up, they got each of the two groups to solve puzzles that were slightly beyond their level. And the idea was, the hope was they would eventually quit doing the puzzle.
Right.
And what they looked was how long it took before they quit. And according to this study, they found that the kids who stared at the cauliflower outlasted the kids who stared at the chocolate chip cookie. And the rationale was, or the conclusion of the study was, that willpower is a finite resource. So if you spend all your resources staring at the chocolate chip cookie, then you didn't have enough, tenacity to stick with the puzzle.
Oh.
Versus if you're staring at the cauliflower, who the heck wants cauliflower? All right, I can do the puzzle for twice as long. So again, going back to this idea of goals, if we want them to stick, and they could be personal, or it could be institutional, or it could be family, doesn't matter. You have to, or the team has to have ownership in them, and they can't just be thrown at them. Otherwise, you're staring at the chocolate chip cookie, and the chances of them lasting are slim to none.
Yeah.
So this is why people give up on the gym by the third week of January, because their significant others going, "Ow, get off the couch," "Ow," or their kids or whatever, and they haven't truly owned it. And if you don't truly own it, your willpower.
Well, and yeah, two thoughts on that. One is it's the old, you have to want to change. But I think a good question to always ask ourselves is, why does this matter? Why do I want to make this change? Because sometimes we might be doing it for the wrong reasons, right? Like if it's to make someone else happy, that may be the right reason, depending on what it is in the situation, but maybe it's not the best reason. So I think asking what your underlying motivation is, and back to your willpower, I think it's in the book, great book to read this time of year, is The Power of Habit. And I think that's in the book where he delves into a lot about willpower and all this research around how, in any given day, we tend to have a fixed supply of willpower that gets deleted as the day progresses. So some people are great at going to the gym, after work, 5 o'clock, but for a lot of people, it's pretty easy. Your willpower is depleted. It's harder to make decisions later on in the day, harder to make the right decisions later on in the day. So I think remembering that willpower is a finite
happy hour, Jim.
Happy hour. I know, right? I know, right? So speaking of success too, here's something that I'm a big fan of. A couple of my clients do this on my recommendation, and they rave about it. Well, they have success, dirt simple, right? Success jars all over their office. So they've got them everywhere. So every time they encourage all employees to just, whenever something good happens, whenever there's just a little win, something that's memorable, it could be something funny, something they want to appreciate, they just write down a little memory of it on a Post-it note, stick it in the success jar. And then some of my clients do this at the end of every month. They just, at their meeting, they pull out these notes and review them, and they have a good laugh and they remember the highlights, or some of them save it up. In fact, there's a law firm that does this same kind of thing, where they save up all these fun things in almost a time capsule for the year, but they started in early January. And then at their year-end review, they review the time capsule, or they review the success jar to remind themselves of some of these fun moments, some of the highlights from the year.
And the other thing is, whatever we're tracking, we tend to attract.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're looking at the highlights, you tend to think more about the highlights. I think I read it from the 1 Minute Manager, Ken Blanchard, many, many moons ago. And something that always resonated with me, it says, catch your employees doing something right.
Right.
As opposed to people, standing over there hovering, going, oh. And this is something that I've tried to implore with my kids. When I mean, it's easy to say you didn't pick up your socks, you left your dishes out, your room's a mess. And I do say that, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, when they do pick up their socks, I try to make a big effort to go, I noticed you picked up your socks.
Yeah.
I noticed you did this. I noticed I didn't have to ask you to do that today. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Because the more we reinforce the behaviors, the more likely people are to do them.
Yeah,
so if we
spend
our year, spend our year bitching about it, then we're going to get more to bitch about. And if we can spend our year celebrating, we're going to get more to celebrate.
Absolutely. Love that. Yeah. So another idea I'm a big fan of, that's a great thing to launch in January, is to lay out a roadmap for the year where you come up with 12 different culture themes related to your workplace, to your business. Some of those could be customer service related, but related to your overall culture, and have a different theme per month that helps you focus on just a specific aspect of your workplace, of your teamwork, of your culture. So everybody kind of rallies around this for 1 month, and you challenge everyone. Okay, on this month, we're going to focus on this aspect at work. Challenge everyone to just ramp up their game, even just those little 1% improvements that are so important in this area. And I think that can be really helpful as well.
Can you give examples of that? Like, what's jumping in my head is, you have a safety month, you have a communication month, and like that's what you're thinking.
Yeah, but you've got to make sure you really commit to it, that it's not just one of those simple, that gets blah, blah, blah lost in the mix. Like, April is safety month, right? You've got to commit to it. You've got to do a little bit of communication around it, maybe celebrate it at the year end, put it on a big whiteboard where people can write down their questions, and I think it helps to have a more specific, focused target. So not just safety, maybe you want to drill down a little bit to a specific aspect of safety. How can we better have each other's back in our workplace when it comes to safety? So, and yeah, just all sorts of different cultural themes. One of them, back to your point, one of them could be recognition. Hey, let's spend a month just remembering the importance of recognizing one another in positive ways. Let's really see if we can ramp this up. And of course, the hope is that it's, back to your everybody being nice for 2 weeks at this time of year, mentioned Sanjay. The hope is that some of this stuff sticks and lasts, right? So it's, of course, not just about, 1 month, we're going to go crazy and recognize everybody and then it's gone. We do these things to help us double down, recommit, in the hope that they will carry on and linger beyond that month.
Absolutely. It's training wheels. And the idea is eventually you want to remove the training wheels. Some of the stuff is more prescriptive, because we're saying have a theme every month, or put up this on your work board, or ask these particular questions. And the idea is this is to kickstart things so that a lot of the stuff will happen organically. And the nice thing about the organic implementation of a healthy work culture is it's just as hard to break as it would be to create it at the beginning. So if you get in one toxic element that comes into a healthy work environment, what happens is a healthy work environment will eat them alive.
Yeah.
And he or she will say, this isn't what I signed up for. And more often than not, you're going to get natural attrition. They're going to go, well, I don't want to be part of the Kumbaya family, and they're going to leave. Versus the opposite, when you have a toxic environment and you bring in a brand new, eager person into that environment, they get eaten alive too. And then they will very often become jaded. Worst thing they can do is stay. The best thing they can do is obviously relocate But if they're too new to know that that exists, they just go, oh, this is what work is. All right, I'm out of here. Or I'm going to be part of it. And then they actually become systemic in creating the problem.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Thank you. But we are already running out of time here, Sanjay.
That's because you talk too much.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes. Power of Habit. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for putting that. We have such supportive, helpful people on our chat who do the work for us that we should have done before.
If only the host could be the same way.
I know, right? I know. So
Like,
a few ideas there.
Half the hosts don't even show up. Jeez.
I know, half of the right. Like at least we're here. Jeez, talk about commitment.
You should be committed.
Yeah, we should be. So we need to wind this down. So we hope you have gave you a few ideas to help you review the year that was, to help you think about the year ahead. I really think it's important in early January to take the time to check in with one another on your team, to check in with your employees. If you are a manager, a supervisor in your job, so important to do that, and so important to take the time to pause and to hit the reset button and challenge your team, challenge yourselves. Okay, what do we want to do in 2023? How are we going to rock this? Is our culture really important to us? And if so, what are we going to commit to as a team to make sure we live our values out loud and make our culture as successful as possible? And yes, on that note, and yes, happy holidays to everybody. I hope you all have a rocking 2023. And somebody asked just there, Carol, is there an EOW meeting on December 28th? And Sanjay's saying no.
We're gonna reconvene January 11th. And by the way, just this whole thing with reassessing and reevaluating and checking and resetting yourself up for 2023 to have a kick butt year. I think one of the really, really important things before you get to that is you have to sometimes turn off your brain and take a rest. So enjoy the holidays. I mean, say no and take a nap and drink some eggnog and surround yourself with loved ones and be present. And then you can make some of those decisions much more effectively.
Yeah, super important point, Sanjay. Thank you for bringing that in. It's so important to recharge our batteries and make sure that we are mentally and physically ready for 2023.
Sweet.
All right.
On that note, have the happiest, wonderfulest, and I know everyone's excited because 23 is a prime number, so we're coming into a prime number year.
I'm so excited it's a prime number. I'm not going to be able to sleep New Year's Eve knowing this.
For the entire year, maybe.
Yeah. Thank you all. Good health to everyone. Safe travels.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year. We will see you in 2023. And until then, and Sanjay, cheers. All my best to you. Hugs and kisses to you, my friend. Peace out. Folks. Bye, everyone. Thank you.